The topic is basically the introduction to structural equation modeling and why it is required, where it is required, and how to learn all the basic things in structural equation modeling. Okay, in this slide, you can see different diagrams, and these different diagrams represents different models. So let's start with the model number one. This is model number one. This is model number one, and this is representing you a construct. So we are having a word called construct, right? So what is a construct? We need to understand the concept of the construct. Constructs are those variables which cannot be measured directly. When you see a questionnaire, in the questionnaire there are many statements. These statements are known as basically the items. So basically these rectangles are representing the items. So item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4, item 5. So all the rectangles are known as items or the statements. And these items are representing a construct. So this is the name of the construct. So basically this is the construct. And construct is represented by the number of items. So the first model we need to learn is known as construct. After that, we will study the second model. This second model is known as measurement model. This is model number 2. In measurement model, we included 5 construct. So in this CFA, in this diagram, how many construct you can see? So you can identify in total there are 5 constructs. So construct number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So there are 5 constructs in this model, and this model is known as measurement model. So this is also known as confirmatory factor analysis. So we will discuss about it also. Then the another model we are having is this model. This is model number 3. This model is known as structural equation modeling. This is a SAM model, a structural model. This model is known as a structural model. So we call a structural model, and this model is known as measurement model. Measurement model. So we are having 2 types of models in SAM. One is a structural model and one is measurement model. In a structural model, you can see this arrow. So it is a one-sided arrow, and this one-sided arrow is not available in measurement model. This one-sided arrow is only available in a structural model. And then we are having the fourth model. This fourth model is known as second orders CFA. So because these are all advanced things, and you may be thinking that why I am discussing the advanced things in the first slide. The reason is that we should know that what we are going to learn, right? So we should know what we are going to learn in this whole workshop. So I can guarantee you that after the workshop, you will be very comfortable in analyzing these models, drawing these models and analyzing these models. So this is my guarantee. Okay, so now we are moving from 0 to advanced. So let me go to the next slide, because all of these things are advanced things which we will learn slowly and slowly. Okay, now let's start from the basic thing, constructs and the items. What is the difference between construct and what is the items? Now, there are many statements which can be measured directly. For example, I can measure your satisfaction directly. I can measure your perceptions, right? But there are many variables which cannot be measured directly. For example, so let me give you one example first. With the help of that example, I hope we can understand. Like, for example, I can ask you one thing that would you like to buy the same product again? So this is known as repurchase behavior. Repurchase behavior. So I'm asking you that suppose you are using the mobile phone of a company, and I'm asking you that would you like to buy the same phone, same company again or not? You can give me the answer that maybe strongly agree, strongly disagree, or whatever another option. Similarly, I can ask you that if company increases the price, would you like to buy the phone? This is called price inelasticity. Price inelasticity. if the company increases the price of the phone of the product, would you like to buy it again? Then I'm asking you third quick question. If your friend asks you that which product he should buy, would you like to recommend him the same product which you are using? This is called referral behavior. Referral behavior. So these three are basically the statements. These statements you can see in the questionnaire, and these all the three statements are representing the brand loyalty. The brand loyalty. So we will represent this structure in this way. Okay, so now you can see that this brand loyalty is the construct, and this repurchase is the item number 1, and this is item number 2, and this is item number 3. So this structure is known as construct, zero order construct. So this is known as zero order construct. Okay, so now I'm asking you, think and give me the answer. Is zero order construct clear? So this is the items, this is the construct, and this structure is known as zero order construct. Zero order construct. So first of all, you should be clear that the zero order construct is clear or not. Okay, so you are saying that it is clear. Fine. Now, what is the difference between constructs and the items? So items we can measure because items are there in the questionnaire. So we can ask the respondent to fill the responses. So these are the items, and because items represents the construct, so constructs are not there in the questionnaire. So most of the time you don't represent the construct in the questionnaire, you only represents the items. So items are known as measured variables which can be measured, and constructs are those which cannot be measured directly. Like in our example, brand loyalty cannot be measured directly, but it can be measured with the help of items. Similarly, items in a structural model are represented by the rectangles. We always represent items in the rectangles in structural equation modeling concept, and constructs are represented by the ellipses. So even if we go in the previous, yeah, in this case you can see that all the items are represented by the rectangles and constructs are represented by the circles, or these are the ellipses, right? So this is the structure of a construct. Okay, now I think it is clear that what is the items and the construct. Now some of the examples of constructs are brand loyalty, service quality, all these are constructs. And similarly, if we know, so how many types of construct we can have in the literature, so we should know the basic types. Here you can see that there are 4 types of constructs. One is known as exogenous construct. So in exogenous constructs, the arrow emerges from the ellipsis. So this property is known as exogenous. Exogenous means independent construct. Similarly, the constructs where arrow joins, this construct is known as endogenous construct. The construct where the arrow joins, tip of the arrow joins. So this is called endogenous, and endogenous means dependent construct. Similarly, some construct is possible where arrow joins and arrow emerges also. So you can see that tip of the arrow joins this construct and this arrow emerges from this construct. So this construct comes between 2 different constructs. This construct is known as mediating construct, and mediating construct will always be part of the model. Mediating construct will always be the part of the model. Similarly, we can also have the moderating construct. So sometimes we use this construct as a moderating construct. I will discuss this mediation and moderation on the last day. So there I will explain you that how can we add a moderating construct. And in this simple diagram, you can see this is a simple diagram. In this simple diagram, we are having the endogenous construct, dependent construct. We are having the exogenous construct, and we also have the mediating construct, right? So in exogenous constructs, the arrow emerges from it, joins the endogenous construct, and mediating constructs come in between. So mediating constructs comes in between exogenous constructs and endogenous constructs. This is the structure of the construct. So exogenous is simply the independent construct, endogenous is simply dependent construct, and mediating comes in between. And moderating the construct come in parallel. So okay, now after understanding the different type of construct, now the question is that how the construct is developed, or there are two school of thoughts in constructs, or there are two theories. One is known as reflective measurement theory, and second is formative measurement theory. Reflective measurement theory and formative measurement theory. Now the question is that basically the question is that whether items reflect the construct or the items form the construct. So this is a very simple question. Let's discuss on this point. This is a very important point. So let me take you to the whiteboard. So the question is that there is a construct in the literature. This construct is known as financial literacy. Financial literacy. Now, financial literacy comes from three aspects. Number one, financial knowledge. Number two, financial behavior. And financial attitude. So these three things form the financial literacy. So financial literacy consists of three aspects. So if you see the structure of the arrow, now in this case, the arrow is coming from the item and join the construct, right? So the direction of the arrow is this. So this construct is known as formative construct. Formative construct. Similarly, in case of brand loyalty, brand loyalty is represented by repurchase behavior. Brand loyalty is also represented by price inelasticity. The brand loyalty is also measured by the referral behavior. So this construct is known as reflective construct. So this construct is known as reflective construct. So there are two constructs, two type of constructs. One is known as formative construct and another construct is known as reflective construct. Now I'm giving you another example. Okay. Suppose the construct is stress. Stress is a construct and it is measured by some of the items, like for example, blood pressure, frustration, and then depression, anger. So in this case, BP, frustration, depression, anger, all these are representing the stress. So all these variables, all these items, they are representing the stress. So this is known as reflective construct. This is known as reflective construct. So similarly, if I draw this another way, so I'm showing you, suppose I'm putting the stress here and I'm saying that stress may come from the health problem, stress may come from the loan, stress may come from the boss or superior, or stress may come from any other reason, maybe enemy. So now the construct stress is a formative construct. Now it is a formative construct. So now the question is, now I'm asking you a simple question. So are you clear that what is the difference between formative stress and reflective stress? Is it clear? Okay. So great. So another example I'm giving you, that there are a lot of constructs in marketing, in human resource, because nowadays even all the, I think more than 90% of the PhDs where data is collected from the questionnaire, the probability is more than 90% that you are using the construct. So constructs are very common nowadays. Okay, so let's move back to the reflective measurement theory and the formative measurement theory. So see the definition of these two theories. Reflective measurement theory assumes that constructs cause the measured indicator variables and that the error is a result of the inability of the latent construct to fully explain the indicators. Thus, arrows are drawn from the latent construct to the measurement indicators. Similarly, in formative measurement theory, it assumes that the measured indicator means the items. The measured indicator causes the construct. So item causes the construct, right? So this is called formative theory. And let me show you the type of the constructs. So in this example, in this slide, you can see that the formative constructs look like this. So this is a formative construct where the arrow emerges from the items and joins the construct. So tip of the arrow is here. And in reflective construct, tip of the arrow is toward the items. So this is the basic difference between the formative construct and the reflective constructs. Now, the basic question comes, how can we identify whether the construct is a formative construct or a reflective construct? Now the question is that, how can we identify that whether the construct is a formative construct or whether the construct is a reflective construct? So the answer is, first of all, you need to analyze the literature review. So first is the literature review will guide you whether the construct is a formative or reflective, because in literature, the financial literacy is also always considered as a formative construct. So we can take it as a formative construct. And so literature review is one of the most important source of guiding. Number two, you have to identify the correlation between the items. So correlation between the items is another fact which tells you correlation between the items. Like for example, if there are three items, item 1, item 2, item 3, if the average correlation between them is greater than 0.7, then the item is a reflective construct. The item is a reflective construct, and if the correlation between these items are even less than 0.5, then this is 100% formative construct. So one of the reason or one of the tests to examine whether the construct is formative or reflective, you can check the average correlation between them. So this average correlation is basically denoted by composite reliability, and I will tell you that how to measure the composite reliability of the construct. So composite reliability is one of the important criteria to decide whether the construct is a formative construct or a reflective construct. Otherwise, by the theory, you can identify, by the literature, you can identify whether the construct is formative or reflective. So I hope it is clear now. Okay, so now we understood what is the meaning of zero order construct. So there are two constructs you can see here. Both are zero order constructs, and we can, if you see these two figures, there are some numbers you can see here. For example, this is a number. This number, this number, this number. You can see some of the numbers here. These are the numbers. So what is these numbers? What is the meaning of these numbers? So this is a construct, and this construct is a zero order construct. And when you run this construct, you will have some of the items. Now I'm explaining you what is the items, right? So these numbers are known as construct loadings. So I'm writing here, this is known as construct loadings. Construct loadings. And these numbers are known as R square. So whenever you analyze the construct, so these two numbers you can see, the first number is known as construct loading, and second number is known as R square. Basically, if you multiply it, like for example, 0.87 multiplied by 0.87 is equal to 76. Like in this case, for example, 0.9 multiplied by 0.9 is equal to 0.81. So if we can write here, 0.9 multiplied by 0.9 is equal to 0.81. So if this is R square, this is R. So what is R? What is construct loading? Construct loading is the correlation between the construct and the item. So what is a construct loading? Construct loading is the correlation between the construct and the item. So this is the simple definition of construct loading. So construct loading represents the correlation between the construct and the items, and the square of it is known as R square. Now, what is the criteria? The criteria is that the construct loadings should be greater than 0.7. So this is the simple criteria to be followed. But one thing more, the construct loading should not be greater than 0.9, at least 93. They should not be very, very high. They should not be very high, because after 0.3, it start indicating the redundancy in the data. So we want that these construct loading should be very high, more than 0.7, but should not be close to 1. Otherwise, we will have some problem, and the problem may comes in the discriminant validity or some model fitness. So I will explain you all these things later on. So how to see the model fitness and all. But at this point of time, we should know that when we are analyzing the construct loading should be greater than 0.7 and should not be very high. Similarly, the R square, because if construct loading is 0.7, so if you multiply 0.7 multiplied by 0.7, it is coming approximately 49%. So we assume that the R square should be greater than around 49%. So the R square should be greater than 49%. So in this way, we can analyze the simple construct. So this is the simple construct to be analyzed. Okay, now let's move from here. Okay, now this is the mathematical representation of the construct, and some of the mathematics we should know because it will help you in explaining the results. Basically, in a construct, the variables or the items are represented by these equations. So here variables is the item and C is the construct. For example, I can write, suppose this is my item 1, this is my item 1 and this is my construct. So I can write that item 1 is equal to alpha plus beta into construct plus error. Now this is the error term which is represented by here. So the error term is represented by this, and if you see the direction of the arrow is like this. So dependent variable is the item. So dependent variable is the item, and C is the independent variable. So it comes here as a construct, and this figure is basically representing the beta. But this beta is a standardized beta, and for a standardized beta, alpha is always 0. So we write the equation that item is equal to alpha, because we are putting alpha is equal to 0 because beta is my standardized beta. For standardized beta, alpha is always 0. So we assume alpha is 0 in all these equations. Beta is represented by 0.87 in this case. The C is the construct and E is the error term which is represented here. So this is the mathematical representation of the constructs. And in construct, we, after assuming beta alpha 1 all 0, the equation comes like this. And in this equation, beta represent standardized construct regression coefficient, also known as construct loadings. As I told you, they should be more than 0.7, and they are indicating the convergent validity, right? And one thing more, higher the beta, more is the impact. So if suppose this beta 3 is highest, it means this this item is highly reflected the construct. So they can also use for reflective or comparative analysis. And these equations are just used for hypothesis testing. And there are two types of beta. One is unstandardized beta and standardized beta. So these betas are unstandardized beta because we are putting in front of alpha, and by assuming by taking the standardized beta, alpha becomes 0. So there are two types of beta calculated by the software. One is unstandardized, which is used for hypothesis testing, and one is standardized, which is used for the convergent validity. So don't worry about the mathematical part. I will show you all these results in the graph in the output. Okay. Now the question is that how to develop the construct, from where constructs can be developed. from where constructs can be developed. So the basic answer is that all these constructs can be developed by these different methods. For example, we can prepare a list of variables using the literature review, expert discussion. Okay, so I'm showing here my paper. So this is the paper published last year, and I want to show you one thing, that yeah, in this page, you can see that we identify different indicators. So these are the different indicators. For example, governance, cultural, performance. So basically, these are the indicators: data quality indicator, business processes indicator, and this indicator is measured by different items. And these items we identified from these references. So in all the questions, or in the papers or in the thesis, you have to define or you have to extract the construct from the literature review, and you have to show like this, that this is my construct. This construct is measured by these items, and these items are represented, or these items we took from these papers. So these three columns you can see in most of the papers: constructs, items, and the different references. Okay. So the first source of constructs are basically the literature review. So prepare a list of variables using the literature review or by discussing with the experts. In some cases, you can add the statement on the basis of the expert discussion, and ask expert to rate the listed variables. So sometimes we ask the expert whether we could add these variables or not. So this process is known as content validity, because sometimes expert can help you in identifying the important variables, whether they are important or not. So especially when you are developing a questionnaire, which we call scale development. So when you develop the scale, so then this content validity is important. And then we check the construct loading, which should be greater than 0.7. And in case the construct loading is less than 0.5, we can drop these items, right? After that, we will go for another process. Okay. So there are some conditions which should be maintained in AMOS. For example, number one, the sample size should be greater than 10 times as the number of variables. This is a normal condition to be fulfilled. The sample size or the number of observations should be greater than 10 times as the number of variables. Suppose you are having 25 variables in the questionnaire, then you must have at least 250 observations to apply structural equation modeling. And all variables should be either on the interval scale or on the ratio scale. And this is a desirable condition that skewness and kurtosis should be greater less than 0.5, because if skewness and kurtosis are less than 0.5, it represents the presence of normality in the data. And standardized construct loading should be between 0.7 and 0.9, as I told you. So these are some of the goodness of fit indicators. I will explain you these goodness of fit indicators. Okay, so let me check. Okay, now I'm coming to the practice side. So let's move to the AMOS. So there I will explain you some of the basic things. And I hope those who are running the software first time, they can understand how to apply the software. So you just type the AMOS. So when you type the AMOS here, you can see the AMOS graphics. AMOS graphics. There are many files in AMOS, but we will always use the AMOS graphics. So let me open the AMOS graphic first. After this step, I will be little slow because we are going to use the software. So let's move to the first page. So this is the first page of the software. When you open the AMOS, this page will open, and I divide this page into different portions. Like here in the left side, you can see different icons, right? So this is the first portion. In the first portion, you can see the different icons. This is the second portion. This is the third portion, and this is the fourth portion or fourth portion. So third portion is a white portion, and this is known as canvas. And fourth portion is a gray portion, means you cannot write, you should not write here. So whatever diagram you are making, the diagram only comes on the white side, this side. Okay, so we have to make the diagram here. Now in this case, there are different icons and we have to learn these icons very carefully. So for example, this icon, you should know what is the meaning of this icon. For simplicity, I call these icons as a column icon, and these icons I call as a B icon, and this is column C icon. So we have suppose C5. So what is the meaning of C5? Let's say I call A8. So what is the meaning of A8? C5 means 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this icon is a C5 icon. Similarly, if I call A8, so it means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is the A8 item. If I say B4, B4 means 1, 2, 3, 4. So this icon will be B4 icon. So in this way, we give name to these icons. Okay. Now I'm going to the steps. So we are going to start the AMOS, how to learn the AMOS. And because I know that most of you are very basic at very basic stage, so listen carefully. So when you open this page, first of all, you have to add the data file. So this icon, you can see that this icon is A8 icon or select data file icon. First of all, we have to add the data file from here. So when you click on this item, this icon, the software is asking you that on which file you want to work. So let's find out the file name. So I have the file name here. I already shared this file with you, brand respect file. So just double click on it. And when you select that file, you can see the name of the file here. The name of the file is brand respect.sav. SAV is the extension of the SPSS files. The sample size is 462. So 462 is the number of observations. And now I click OK. Click OK means I'm agree with this file. So if I click on this C3, this C3, if you click on the C3, you can see the list of the items in the file. So let me show you. In this case, these are the items BP1, BP2, BP3, BP4, BP5. So all the 5 items are representing the brand performance. So brand performance is represented by brand performance number 1, brand performance 2, brand performance 3, 4 and 5. So there are 5 items representing the brand performance. Similarly, the second construct is brand trust. Brand trust is represented by BT1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we are having 5 items representing the brand trust. Similarly, we are having the brand awareness and brand reputation. So now I can see all the items here. So I am using C3 icon to see all the items in my file. Okay, so I told you how to use A8, how to use C3. Now I'm going to use C1. So I select C1. When I select C1, you can see this type of icon on the canvas. First of all, I am going to make a construct. You just drag and drop. Right. Now I feel that the size of this icon is very big. I have to make it small. So I can change its shape by using this. This is known as A6. A6 means shape change. So I can change the shape of the construct. So I am comfortable with this shape, no problem at all. Okay, now suppose this is my brand performance. Let's say this is my brand performance. So I write here brand performance. Okay, I can increase the size of the brand performance also. So now it looks good. And you can use this truck. This is a truck. You can use this truck to move the diagram like this. So suppose I put it here. Now Brand performance is a construct. BP is the full form of BP is brand performance. Brand performance is represented by these 5 items. So how to add these 5 items? So let's take this again. Now keep it in the center and press enter or click 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I clicked 5 times. So 5 items I can see here. Now I can rotate this whole diagram by using this B6. So I am taking the B6 and I am rotating it. So in this way, you can rotate the construct. And so I think that now we can work on this construct. So now you drag and drop the items, like I'm dragging and dropping. You just drag and drop. You just select, drag and drop. Select, drag and drop. This is the shape changer. Change the shape of the object. So I can design the shape change. Okay, but the problem is that I want to change the shape of each in the similar way. Means if I make changes here, all rectangles should change at the same time. So I can go for this option. So this option, this is like a guldasta, right? So you can click on this, and now if you make changes, the all changes come simultaneously. So you can see that if I make a change in one, all other changes will be symmetrical. So this is a very important point. So whenever you want to change the diagram, always use this preserve symmetries. And even if you move, they will move in symmetry. The one of the benefit of this is that after selecting this is C10 icon, after selecting the C10, the diagram will be symmetrical always. Okay, now I am just yeah. So this is my construct. Okay, in this construct, brand performance means the construct name is there. The name of the items is also there, but these error terms are empty. So I want to add these items. How to add it? Go to plugin. Go to plugins. In plugins, click on the name unobserved variables. So I repeat, I want to fill these empty circles. So how to fill these empty circles? If you just click plugin and click on the name unobserved variables, after that you can see all the error terms in these circles. Now my diagram is complete and I want to run this construct. After making the diagram, you can run this construct. So now we are moving to B8. This is known as B8. B8 means B column 8th icon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if I click here, I can decide what output I can bring. So I am clicking on the output side. I need standardized estimates. So this is the output option. Click on the output option. And whenever you want to run any diagram, these are must to check outputs. Number 1, standardized estimates. Number 2, squared multiple correlations. Then modification indices. And you can select this number according to your choice. So let's start with 10. We always have to check the normality and the outliers. We always have to check the correlations, although in this diagram there is no correlation. But keep it on. And if you want to run the bootstrap, you can also perform the bootstrap with 200 or 2000. So at this time I'm running only 200. So these output I need. So you just check standardized estimate, which is standardized beta, which is construct loadings. This is the R square, modification indices, and test for normality and the outliers, correlation of the estimates, and you can also run bootstrap so that your result will be normalized. Okay, now after that, after selecting all these options, and one thing more, if you go to the estimate, you just check we are using the maximum likelihood estimation method. We are using the maximum likelihood estimation method for calculating the betas. Although you can use all the other 4 options, but most of the time we will use maximum likelihood option. In case your data is having missing value, then you can click on this also. So this option is only for missing values. If you have missing values, click on it, otherwise don't click on it. Then you can see that there are three type of options the software is giving you, that fit neither model, fit the saturated model, and fit both saturated as well as independent model. Now in this diagram, there are three models. There are three type of models. Number one, the model saturated model. Saturated model means best model. So if this model is the best model, what number will come? Independence model means the worst model or the null model. So what values will come if this model is a null model? And our model is, you can see here, this is a default model, right? So you can see that this is a default model, and or you can write here, this is my model, right? This is my model. Okay. So my model means the model which you are making, my model. Okay. So now we can compare this model by saturated model and independence model. Then we go to the numerical. Now in this numerical, these two options are very useful. Number one, sometimes if software is showing you the problem of non-positive covariance matrix, then you can solve it by clicking this option. Sometimes what happens when two variables are highly correlated. So in simple language, if two statements are highly correlated, then you may have this kind of problem. So in that case, you have only two choices, either to remove the item from the list or click on here. Similarly, sometimes you have problem of unidentified models. So in that case, you have to click on this option. So these two options sometimes we use. In case of bias, we want unbiased output, and covariance is analyzed by maximum likelihood method. So you just check the as input unbiased, analyze using maximum likelihood. These two options should be clicked. Basically, sometimes what happens, by mistake you click on this, so then you will have a problem in the output. So always two options to be checked. Then in output, these values we have to click, and in AMOS there is no okay. You whatever you select, it will be permanently there, and after that you just cross it. Okay, now we are very clear on the output side, and now I'm going to run this model. But the problem is that software will not run your model if you don't save it. First of all, you have to save this model, otherwise the software will not run it. For example, if I want to run it, this software will show you this kind of problem, and you will be confused that what is the meaning of this problem. So this software is giving you very complicated problem, but the problem is that kindly save your model, otherwise I will not run it. So we have to save this model first. So I'm saving this model. The name of the model is brand BP. I'm just saving in the name of BP. And after saving this model, I can run it. So now you can see that the software is running this model. So when you run this model, this is highlighted now. Earlier it was not highlighted, but now it is highlighted. If you click here, if you click on this red arrow, you can see all these numbers. There are two type of number comes here. One is the unstandardized. You can see there. If you click on the unstandardized, you can see all unstandardized beta. In case of unstandardized beta, one of the number is 1. Basically, either the first or the last value is 1, and all other values are in comparison to that, because this is unstandardized. So we never see the unstandardized value. We always see standardized values. So once you click on the standardized values, you can see all these numbers: 64, 78, 78, 82, 76. So all these numbers are representing the construct loadings, and these numbers are representing the R square: 41, 61, 61, 68, 57. So this 68 meaning, the meaning of the 68 is that 68% of the variance of the construct is explained by this fourth item, and the correlation between the BP4 and brand performance is 0.82. So 0.82 is the correlation between these two, means between the item and between the construct. Okay, now we can see all these values here. And now I am showing you how to see the output in a table. So you can see a option. This option is known as B9 option, and this option is known as view text. So you can see here it is a view text. So when I click on the view text, the output will come here. Now I'm showing you the output carefully. Now you have to see very carefully. Number one, nodes for the group. So the model is recursive, sample size 462, right? Recursive means this model is not having any loop. The model is free of loop. And variable summary, these are the 5 variables, independent variables, items. These are the 5 items in the construct. These are the unobserved. Unobserved means this is a construct, so it is unobserved. And this is the error term. These are the error terms. You can see. And okay, and after that, parameter summary. So parameter summary is a mathematical term. Not now see the normality. This is very important. Assessment of normality, right? In assessment of normality, so this is the minimum response. Minimum response is 1. Maximum response is 2. 7. Maximum response is 7. Minimum response is 1. Maximum response is 7. Skewness is this is the level of skewness, and basically we expect this skewness to be less than 0.5, and the kurtosis is should be less than 0.5 also, and minus and just plus, they are representing the nature of kurtosis and the skewness. It is negatively skewed data, and minus kurtosis means plateautic data. And this value you can, which you are seeing here, 8.718, this is known as Mardia coefficient of kurtosis. And Mardia coefficient of kurtosis is measuring the multivariate normality. Multivariate normality. So multivariate normality is quite important in here in structural equation modeling. This is known as Mardia coefficient of kurtosis. And ideally, Mardia coefficient of kurtosis should be less than number of items multiplied by, you can say, 2 or something. So I have not found any criteria for this, but from my experience, I'm saying that the number of items multiplied by 2 is the maximum limit of the Mardia coefficient of kurtosis. So here the number of items is 5. So 5 to the 10, and 10, this number should be less than 10. Okay. Otherwise, if this number is too high, it means you are having the problem of multivariate normality. So you can see that it is called multivariate normality. And when you click on the next slide, this is known as Mahalanobis distance. Mahalanobis distance will tell you that which observations are the outliers in this model. Like you can see here, the observation number 69 is the biggest outlier. The observation number 313 is the next outlier. So we are having the different outliers. If you want to improve the multivariate normality, you can remove some of the outliers from here. And if P1, now you can see the P1. P1 is the probability. The probability that this observation is the part of the normal distribution or not. So the null hypothesis that this observation is the part of normal distribution, but the probability is rejecting it. So we are rejecting that this observation is lying within the normal distribution. So all the p values which are less than 0.05, they are representing that these observations are not normal, right? Okay, so I hope it is clear now. Then we can go for the nodes for the model. Now in this case, you can see that the chi-square values, because in some papers you need to report the chi-square value, and chi-square value is 44 and degrees of freedom is 5. If you divide 44 by 5, this is a very important indicator known as C-min upon DF. So there is a very important indicator, this C-min upon DF. So here, if you divide chi-square approximately 45 divided by 5, it is equal to 9. Actually, this C-min upon DF 9 is very high. This value should be less than 3. This value should be less than 3. Otherwise, your model is not having a goodness of it. So we are having a problem here that this value should be less than 9, but should be 3, but it is very high as compared to 3. So it means we are having somewhere problem. We have some problem in the data. So what is the problem? How to identify this problem? I will tell you the secret. So if you listen very carefully, this is the secret where which is not available any of the book. Okay, so now let me show you the secret of this problem. If you okay, let me move to the next estimate. Now see the estimates. This first table is representing you the unstandardized beta. In this unstandardized beta, all p values should be significant. Yes, they are significant. All the 3 stars means all the p values are less than 0.000. So all the statements are representing the construct significantly. This is the meaning of these 4 stars. All these statements are representing the brand performance significantly. Then if you want to see the construct loading, the second table is showing you the construct loading. So all these values are representing the construct loadings. So these are the construct loadings, and all the construct loading, you can see that they are more than 0.7. And actually there are 2 conditions to be fulfilled here. Number 1, so all the values construct loadings should be greater than 0.7. And second thing is that the average of these 5, right? If you take the average of the construct loading, it should be greater than 0.7. So either of the condition is good. Because in this case, this is only 0.64, but if the average of this is more than 0.7, then we can keep it. And how accurately we can find out? So I'm telling you a formula. So here there is a formula. This formula is known as construct loading, and this formula is known as lambda, sum of the lambda square and summation of the lambda square plus e square. So let me check the formula from the internet, because composite reliability formula is sigma lambda square plus sigma. Yeah, so the formula is right. Okay, now just I'm showing you how to apply this formula. Okay, so you can say here point 0.75 square upon 0.75 square plus 1 minus. Okay, so even I can show you in the Excel file, that is much better. If I take all these values in Excel file, okay, so we are having a blank Excel file, and take the sum of it, and now you calculate the error term. Error term is equal to 1 minus this square. So these are the error terms. E is the 1 minus this square, and let's take the sum of it. And if you can apply this formula, divided by and plus this. So you can see that the answer is 0.87. So answer is 0.87. So in this way, we can calculate the composite reliability of a construct. So I repeat, this error term is equal to 1 minus lambda square or beta square, and we take the sum of this, and we take the sum of this also, and use this formula. This formula is written here. So in this way, we can also calculate the composite reliability. After that, now check the performance of these error terms, error variances. One thing which is surprising is that the variance of error 5 is more than 1. So this is a dangerous sign. we should not have very high errors variances. So high error variances are the problem. If all the error variances are less than 0.5, then they are considered to be good. But any error variances more than 0.5 is not good. Then in the last table, you can see the RA square. That is not a problem here. Now we will go to the model fitness. Now I'm telling you a very important term, the goodness of fit. So even I also share one paper with you where all the goodness of fit are well explained. So first thing which we need to check is C min upon DF. This C min upon DF is equal to chi-square upon degree of freedom, and this value should be less than 3, number 1. So you have to check this value. Number 2, GFI. Number 3, AGFI. So according to me, GFI and should be greater than 0.8. If it is greater than 0.9, it is very good. And AGFI also should be greater than 8. So these are the conditions for GFI and AGFI. GFI means goodness of it, and AGFI is augmented goodness of it, means goodness of it adjusted by the degree of freedom. And then we have to check the CFI, comparative fit index. The CFI should be greater than 0.9 in any case, because in most of the papers in presentations, if your CFI is less than 0.9, then nobody will accept your model. Then TLI, this is, you can see it is a TLI. TLI should be less than 0.9 also. Then even then NFI. Yeah, NFI is slightly lower. So NFI is more than 0.8 is also okay. So these 3 things we have to check from third table, and then we have to check one more table. Yeah. So the next table which you need to check is RMSEA. So the next thing which you need to check, RMSEA. RMSEA, root mean square of the error term, error approximation. It should be less than 0.08. So we are having these statistical fitness measures, and in these 2 fitness measures, right, in all the, if you check all the conditions with the actual figures, this is a problem. RMSE is a problem here, and the next problem is C min upon DF. So we are having 2 problems in this case. One is, so we are having 2 problems here. One is the C min upon DF is very high, more than 3, and second problem is RMSEA is less than, not less than actually 0.08. So these 2 conditions are not met by the report. Now, as a layman, I'm telling you, nobody can correct these values. It is very difficult to correct these values. So I have some modification methods to modify the goodness of it. So let me tell you some of the one or two methods. Number 1, you have to check the modification indices. So modification indices are showing you some of the reasons of the problem, like the error 3 is correlated with the error 4, and error 1 is correlated with the error 5. Error 1 is correlated with the error 3. So let me try to correlate these error terms. And after that, I expect some modification indices to prove. So 3, 4, 1, 5, 1, 3, 3, 4, 1, 5, 1, 3. So let me try these error terms. This is 3, 4, and okay, let me run it again. Now 2, 5, 1, 5, 2, 5, 1, 5, 2, 5, 1, 5. Now if you run this, so you can see that your C min upon DF come down to 0.1.115, GFI is 0.998, CFI is equal to 1, and RMSEA is equal to 0.16. So this is one of the method of removing the problem. And if you don't like all the 3, you can cut 1. And if you run it, you can see the problem is still solved. Okay, 4, 9, and 1. Okay, this is still high. And RMSEA is also 0.85 in boundary case. So you can try other combination 2, 5, 2, 5, and remove this. So this modification indices play a very important role in correcting the, okay, yeah, you can see that even after adding these two things, two arrows, all the problem is gone. All the problem is gone. RMSE is also fine. So this modification indices is one of the important concept that we should know to improve the model fit indices. So at this point of time, we are having many solutions. And if you don't want these arrows, then you have to make some changes in the data set to make the correction for the model fit indices. And okay, let me run it again once again. Another thing is that if you go for Mahanopolis distance, if you remove these 5 or 6 observations, that may also help you in modifying the values. And yeah, any other thing we can see here? No. Okay, so this is the procedure of adopting or increasing the model fit, analyzing the construct. Similarly, now I'm showing you another construct, just repeating the process for another construct. Let me open a new diagram. So now it is we reach at a blank page. Now I'm showing you another diagram. So take here C1, make a construct, 5 items, and take the diagram in this way. Attach the file. You can attach the file from here, and file is this. Okay. After attaching the file, you can see the variables here. So I'm running the brand trust. Brand trust. And after that, the name of the construct, you have to just click on here. When you click on this ellipse, you can see this box. The name is brand trust. And remember that this space is not allowed. So you can put it down. The space is not allowed. Now you can increase the size like this. And these error terms can be filled by clicking go to plugin, this plugin, and name unobserved variables. After that, your model is complete. Then you have to go for saving. You can save by clicking this. Now I'm putting this name as brand trust BT. And after saving, I can run it. But before running, I have to click the different output I need. Model fit indices, you know how much model fit indices is important. And then test for normality and outlier. Now I'm running it. After running, this icon is highlighted. Now, if I click on this icon, I can see all the values. All the values are fine because they are more than 0.7, less than 0.9, all good. Let's see the output. Actually, whenever I run the model, first of all, I check the output. So whether this model is good or not. This is not fine. This is fine. This is fine. This is fine. Fine. Good. RMSEA is not good. So it means this model is also suffering the same problem of modification indices. So error 1 and 2 are correlated. Error 1 and 3 are correlated. So first join 1 and 3. So maybe 1 and 3 will serve the purpose. 1 and 3. Let's run it. Now let's check the model first again. Now it is good. It is less than 3. GFI less more than 0.9. AGFI is more than 0.9. CFI is more than 0.9, more than 0.9, more than 0.8, and RMSE is less than 0.05. So now my solution is there. If I go to estimate, all statements are representing the construct significantly. All the values are good, more than 0.7, and the error terms, yeah, this error term is actually creating problem. You can see that we have to join the error 1 and error 2, error 3. This is also having problem. So error variances should not be very high. Yeah. Now after doing this, I am satisfied with my construct. I can use this construct in my model. So my constructs are ready. So you have to do it for each and every construct initially. so that you can understand that once my all the constructs are good, so we can, after that we can move to another level. So this is the basic information about the construct you should know. And one thing I'm also showing you. So one or two things which I also want to show it again. And just wait. Okay. So you need to remember a few things which I want to show here. And the different softwares are available for MOS, Literal, MOS, EQS, M plus, R Stata, but MOS is the best among all these softwares. Nowadays, M plus is gaining a lot of popularity because of multi-level modeling. So I'm also planning to introduce the workshop on multi-level modeling using M plus. Then distribution, we want the data to be multivariate normal, and the Mardia coefficient should be less than 2 times the number of items. The sample size should be large. The analytical focus, okay. The purpose is to confirm the theory or test the theory. The number of indicators required is minimum. Yeah. So this is one of the important points which you should know. Each construct must have at least 3 items. Otherwise, you will have some problem in the MOS. So at least 3 items should be there in each construct. And MOS will handle only reflective construct. MOS will not handle the formative construct. The formative construct you can analyze only on other softwares like PLS, Smart PLS. The Smart PLS can handle even if you are having single items in the construct, but in MOS it will run with 3 items at least and all reflective. However, Smart PLS can also handle formative and reflective both. So yeah, one thing also, all the items should be on the at least 5-point scale or 7-point scale or a ratio scale. You should not have less than 5-point scale if you want to get good results. And one thing also I have seen that if your number of items are more, even if your items are more than 50 or 70 or 80, the different kind of problem start coming. Like one of the problem in MOS is called Haywood problem. Haywood problem. Haywood problem is that the sometimes you found that the correlation is coming more than one. So when the correlation coefficient is coming more than one, which is not practically possible. So this is only possible in MOS. So this is a problem which most of you may have seen in the past. So whenever your model is very big, you may suffer from the Haywood problem, right? So that is another problem in MOS. Okay, so we are having two type of structural equation modeling. So one is known as covariance based structural equation modeling, and second is known as partial least square based structural equation modeling. The basic difference between the covariance based structural equation modeling and PLS based equation modeling is that the focus of covariance based structure modeling is on fitness of the goodness of fit indices. So the focus is on improving the fitness of the model. However, in Smart PLS, the focus is on increasing the variance of the dependent variable. So the PLSM is focusing on explaining the variance of the dependent variable, but here in covariance based SAM, the MOS is running covariance based SAM, where all the calculation is on the matrix. So we start with the covariance matrix. After making the model, we again calculate the covariance between the variables. Then we can take the difference between the actual and the estimated, and we try to minimize the difference. So this is called covariance based SAM method. So in covariance based SAM method, you need multivariate sample, multivariate normality, large data. The approach is to test the theory, and hypothesis testing is there. The variables are scale variables, and we want to examine the relationship between the constructs. However, in PLS, we can run it when the sample size is very low, and even the constructs are formative, and model is highly complicated, so then PLSM is useful. Okay, so I think I covered almost every topic which I decided to cover today. Okay, so now after this session, I will open for the query session.